Hey everyone, welcome to Sports Taaza. Today we have with us Vidit and Naren Harwani, who has his own Formula One channel on YouTube. Welcome, guys. So,
Hi.
in today's video, we'll be covering the key battles that went around in specific team this year and which possible driver came out on top of the other one. Let's begin with you, Naren, and let's start with AlphaTauri. Who do you think came out on top, and what were the key moments that were really special for you?
Sure. Thanks, Shubham and Vidit, for having me here. It's totally a pleasure to have this discussion with you all, and we straight away dive into it. Yeah, I think definitely AlphaTauri were the underdogs going into this season, and Pierre Gasly, I think, upped his game really well, and he was, I think, consistent throughout the first half. I think around 13 races, he was consistently uh, scoring points, finishing amongst the top six, and uh, he was right at the front of the grid, and I think he performed really well. Yuki Tsunoda didn't really, uh, he is his rookie season, right? So I think he just needs some time to get more used to the car and kind of just take it easy. And yeah, I think kudos to AlphaTauri. I think they both have performed really well. And the last race, we saw the overtake of Yuki Tsunoda. He finished P4, which is the highest for his championship. So it's a great way to end the season for AlphaTauri.
I know, like just quickly to add on, quite disappointing, personally, from Yuki. I mean, I wouldn't say disappointing, but the amount we had heard about him when he moved from F2 to F1, I had expected him to do much more. But then we did see some highlights, although that was totally overshadowed by what happened in the last lap at Abu Dhabi. But irrespective, I'm pretty sure he's going to do well going into the season. With it, next one, let's talk a little bit about Alfa Romeo.
Both these drivers are actually not racing in 2022. I feel both Kimi and Giovinazzi would not be too happy with their performances because overall they scored about 13 points in the entire season. Williams scored about 23 points. So goodbye season for Kimi. All Kimi fans. He is loved by fans around the world, by all motorsport fans. So his banter, his attitude will surely be missed. And Giovinazzi did show some performance, but that was in the latter half of the season, probably a bit too late for him to survive his seat. So I still feel that although Kimi scored more points, but overall in terms of qualifications, Giovinazzi out qualified Kimi as well. So they have actually got Bottas in for next season, a very experienced driver coming in, and a complete overhaul is expected. I feel for next season for Alfa Romeo.
Absolutely. Like the only, I think the highest finish for Giovinazzi came all the way in Jeddah, I remember. And by that time, it was already announced that, there's going to be a replacement for him. Maybe a little harsh, but considering how he was overtaking in the beginning of the season and towards the last half of the season, probably the team thought that it was necessary to, bring about a change and bring in a fresh face to re strategize. All right. Naren,
And if you
I
see, the
will.
Italian Jesus has been the backup driver for all Ferrari cars. So he's the backup driver for Alfa Romeo, for Haas, for everyone involved. So he's actually
Yeah.
multitasking.
True that. Naren, let's talk about Haas, okay? 0 points, always at the back of the grid, not much to choose between the two. So rather than like, picking one over the other, what do you think? What would they do going into the next season?
Yeah, I was just actually thinking about both the drivers like a couple of days back, like how exactly they finished the entire season. Like it must be super difficult for them with not upgrading the cars, with not having the funds to work on the cars, and they're back at the back of the grid. So it must be really super difficult for Haas as a team to compete and finish the season, and they kind of managed that pretty well. And I think they knew that right from the start they cannot do that, and they were really upfront about it, which is really good. And I really saw that the battle between both of them was really intense at times between Mick Schumacher, and Nikita Mazepin. And I think one overtake which I think was really good was Mick Schumacher's overtake in Monaco Grand Prix on Nikita Mazepin, which was really good. And yeah, I think even Mazepin's radio messages quite funny guy. He was asked to switch the mode to some mode, and he said, "We are in Monaco, I cannot do that." And then immediately next week,
Yeah.
like he was asked to change the mode again to some other mode, and he said, "Okay, yeah, done immediately. Now we are not in Monaco." So we saw quite a funny side of Nikita Mazin. But I think really important. Both are rookies coming in the F1 season. I think it's really important for rookies to get a really good time into a car which is at the back of the grid, so that just gain some track time. That plays a very important role.
And as a matter of fact, at the very beginning of the season, Gunther Steiner had made it very clear that
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if we don't score any points because they hadn't actually made any upgrade to their car from the
Yes.
2020 season. They said our focus remains on 2022, and that's where we are trying to strengthen upon. So I think
Yes.
fair play to them. They just chose to prioritize.
Yep.
All right. With it, let's move to McLaren. Okay, rather interesting constructor season for them.
So I feel for McLaren, the first half of the season was amazing because Lando scored about 110 points, and then came the Italian Grand Prix. So in which both the drivers scored a one and two, only constructors to do that. And I feel Ricardo took some time, the initial few races, to adjust to the car, get used to his shift to McLaren. But I feel towards the end, the second half, McLaren versus Ferrari was a huge battle. But towards the second half, after the Russian Grand Prix, after Lando's debacle, and Lando was not scoring points, then that fight for third and fourth for the constructors also finished. But I feel Lando had a brilliant season. He finished sixth. For a long time, he was running in the top four, beating either the secondary driver of Mercedes or Ferrari. So I feel he had an amazing
I
season
think we've lost him. Naren, is it only me, or
in
can you also not
Yeah.
hear
2022.
me?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we
Although
can
his
hear him now.
performance dipped towards the second half, but surely he will come back.
It's
I
all
think his
right.
voice is cracking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. We can move on, I believe. Once he gets his connection back, he can join in.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
uh, another team, I will give this to you, Naren. Talking about Williams, I think monumental season compared to where they were the season before.
Yes, I
Clear
think.
win.
Yeah. Yep, I think last year they had no points, and this year they scored like 23 points, if I'm not mistaken. And we saw really like Mr. Saturday, George Russell, like he made into Q2 most of the races, and it was great to see him perform. He didn't have the best of the cars, like Williams is the backfield car, and he was getting the best out of that car, and that kind of talks a lot about how he's driving the car and in what direction Williams is moving forward as well. So a great season for Williams for sure. I think he got on the like we were actually there was a point when we all were waiting when Russell will score his first points. I think mid-season, and I think Hungarian GP if I'm not mistaken, and then immediately after that Spa GP is when he scored his first. Hungarian is when he scored his first points, and I think Spa is when he got a podium as well, which was really unexpected. But I think the situation, how the race panned out, which was really lucky for him. Like we didn't actually see a race, and he qualified really well in the wets. So yeah, a great season for Williams for sure.
Yep, that's right. And funnily, like you mentioned, both the races, across those two races, the only constructor to land their car all times, like, both the cars and points was actually Williams.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a
Yes.
highlight. And even Latifi, had started coming to the party towards the end of the season where he even out qualified
Yes.
Russell in a race or two, which was great to see. And he will be somewhat stepping into the senior shoes in the Williams car because Albon's going to take some time to adjust and to fit in. So it'll be interesting to see how they perform next year. I think
Yeah.
we're back with it. With it, why don't you give us a quick recap of how do you think went on with Mercedes, with Bottas knowing it's going to be his last season, and until very late in the season, he didn't get himself a win. So, how do you think about Mercedes' performance?
I think Mercedes won the Constructors' Championship. That shows they were dominant in spite of not winning the Drivers' Championship. So I feel Bottas had a huge role to play in that Constructors' win. They may not have celebrated it as much as the Drivers' Championship win probably meant to them, but still, for the principle, for all the drivers, Constructors' Championship matters as well. So So I feel Bottas got 11 podiums. If you compare that to Perez, Perez got 5 podiums. Not comparing it with Lewis and Max, they're in a different league. But I feel Bottas, his starting first 5 races did not go as per performances. Russell crashed into him in Imola. One, he had a very, very long pit stop. So he had two DNFs in the first 5 races. But what we saw in Abu Dhabi, the final trio of Max, Lewis, and Bottas getting on the podium is probably the last time I feel we'll see the three of them together on the podium. They've had the most number of podiums together, the three of them. And I really feel Bottas was a proper wingman, not just in 2021, but before that as well. He's been so crucial to Lewis's wins and for Mercedes' dominance all across. So he'll surely be missed by Mercedes.
For sure. I mean, I think very likewise. Never got the preferred strategy, was never the primary driver, and each and every year, both of them as drivers. I mean, it's been a case with Mercedes. They won like 8 consecutive constructors championship, but Bottas has delivered. And for them, and with Bottas, the constructor championships have always been a one-way traffic. So it has the huge amount of credit needs to go to him as well. Moving on to another champion racing team, Naren. I believe
Yep.
you're a fan as well. So let's start,
Yes.
bring our focus to Red Bull.
Yes, Red Bull, I think they had a crazy season. I think right from the start, they were at the top of the game. Max Verstappen was showed that his intentions are to get a championship this season, and I think right from turn one of the season, and he showed that he's really aggressive. He like didn't give a chance to Lewis Hamilton to just give any space in turn one. So most of the races that I've seen, I just saw all the replays recently, and noticed that he was so aggressive right from the get go, like turn one, and all races that I've seen, the replays again, like most of the races went on to the last few laps, which was so intense the season that we had, and Red Bull were literally got the strategies right, pit stops. They were so quick, and it all fell in their hands. And plus, I think Sergio Perez, I think he really performed immensely well. I think he played a very big role in carrying the drivers' championship for Red Bull. He kind of had like multiple roles wherein there were times when I think Monaco he overcut Lewis Hamilton for sixth place. There were Baku he didn't allow Hamilton to pass him in the entire race. Then there was Silverstone he took the fastest lap. Austin he undercut pulled off an undercut. And Abu Dhabi was the highlight, right? He kind of let Hamilton. They took like at least 6 to 7 seconds off Hamilton lead to Max Verstappen. So I think he played a very crazy role in letting Max Verstappen win the Drivers' Championship. And hats off to Red Bull. I think even the entire team, like even the strategists, like pulling off really intense strategies as well, like doing a two-stopper or a one-stopper, going for a long strategy for Sergio Perez and bidding Max Verstappen for two-stopper, and they played the perfect team game. I think, like even in the last race, we saw that qualifying he gave a toe, which was really
Exactly.
unexpected. I didn't
Exactly.
expect that, and even when Lewis Hamilton was asked, like, okay, what do you think of that? And he said, okay, Bottas not supposed to do that. We never asked anything of such. But I think it was so crucial that toe and getting that pole position was so crucial, and Red Bull were on the top of the game in the final few races. So yeah,
Exactly. And as Horner said, right, he's a legend. So I think that kind of settles it all for him.
yeah.
Moving on with it, we'll get to a constructor that really struggled last year, but we saw glimpses of some amazing performances. Let's head to Ferrari.
Yes, I think an amazing comeback by Ferrari. I know Naren's a huge Ferrari fan, so an amazing comeback. And so glad for Carlos Sainz finally getting some limelight. At the start of the season, Charles was doing so well. He was the primary driver. But Carlos just went under the limelight, didn't have a single DNF, went about his business slowly, and finished fifth. So I think Ferrari versus McLaren, I said earlier, was a very interesting battle. And I believe Ferrari has won it because of the camaraderie between the two drivers. I think they have some amazing bonding going into 2022. And in the next 1 or 2 years, if both of them stick at Ferrari, I think Ferrari, probably if the developments for 2022 go right, will again be a contender for the championship spot.
Got it. Moving on. to a constructor that pulled in a four-time world champion and also their somewhat rookie season under the brand of Aston Martin. Naren, what do you think about their performance? Which driver do you think came on top of the two?
I think it was really not the season that went in their favor. I think they really were overhyped right going into the season. I think their launch were like too hyped, where they're saying that okay, going from 2020 to 2021, they're gonna be really quick, but it didn't go on right from the start. I think they didn't spend the tokens in the right upgrades of the car. So and I think they struggled in most of the races with strategies, with pace. I think, except a few races, we saw Sebastian Vettel on the podium, which also was taken away from him because of that fuel. He didn't have the minimum amount of fuel at the end of the race. So I think it was totally a down season for them, and it's all to forget for them right now. And just look forward for the 2022 F1 season, and just uh, hope that they kind of perform and get at the front of the grid, maybe in the top four, and just start getting finishing in the top 10 or top seven to start with, and then start getting on the podium. So I think top six, top seven would be the right aim for them going into the next season.
That makes sense. They have a lot of building up to do, and they have a
Yep.
lot of catching up to do as well. Last constructor, Alpine with it. Where do you think, and what are your thoughts on their performances? Both of them landed in podiums at least once.
Yeah. So I feel Alpine did an amazing comeback, and both of them getting podiums. Alonso's podium will be special to all his fans in Qatar. I think both of them actually played like teammates. If Ocon is ahead, Alonso is defending. If Alonso is ahead, Ocon is defending. Always thinking about the team, about the other driver alongside. And I feel Ocon was not performing too well during the second half of the first half of the season, but then his win at Hungary really changed things for him. His contract's being extended by Alpine, so Alonso's also there next year. I'm sure he'll use all his experience to make the car a better car. And with Ocon, who's a longer term, the next 3 years driver, I think Alpine has a good future in front of them.
Awesome. And I agree as well. Ocon's a wonderful driver. I think that's also a reason why Mercedes, got him in as a tester driver when he was released earlier. So good season ahead for us to look at. Uh, there's been a lot of speculation going around, Hamilton's future. Even Eccleston coming up and saying that he doesn't think that Hamilton's going to continue being a part of F1, and he's somewhat in a shock after the events that unfolded Abu Dhabi. Naren, I'll give this question to you. What do you think? If in the unlikely scenario of Hamilton not being a part of the grid next season, who do you think would replace him?
I think if Hamilton retires, I think that will just be a really big void in F1. Like, I'm pretty sure it's too difficult to get over whatever happened in Abu Dhabi. So I'm pretty sure it'll take a lot of time, and it'll be really difficult for both Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton. But yeah, if he retires, I think Nick De Vries will possibly replace him.
And with it, what's your take? Who do you think would possibly replace him?
I think irrespective you're a Max fan or a Lewis fan, you want Lewis in F1 for 2022.
Yeah.
But if he decides to hang his boot, I would still think Esteban Ocon is the one, because George Russell is a young driver. You cannot have another young driver alongside him. So I think Ocon is one who can actually pair up with Russell.
Got it. With that, we would close the conversation for the day. For the day. Thank you so much, Naren. Thank you so much, Vidit. We had a very intense contest this year, and there's a lot to look forward to the next season. Sports Taaza will be back with more such content. So keep on watching and do subscribe for more content. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shubham. Thanks for this.
Thank you.